Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be heading to Oz.
Oz.
Yeah, but not the one you're probably thinking of.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at Gregory Maguire's novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, Wicked, the one that inspired the musical.
That's the one. And I've been doing some reading.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a whole stack of academic papers and reviews right here, and let me tell you,
What?
this is not your grandma's Wizard of Oz.
It's pretty wild how Wicked, took this classic story we all know and just completely flipped it on its head.
Right.
It's like Maguire just asked, what if the Wicked Witch wasn't actually wicked, and then just built this whole world around that question.
Yeah, and we all grew up thinking the Wicked Witch was just wicked.
Evil.
But Maguire really, paints this whole picture of her life before Dorothy.
Before the ruby slippers.
And that complexity is actually one of the things that drew critics to the book.
Yeah, but not all of them loved it, right?
Yeah, it got some pretty mixed reviews.
Some critics were just, blown away with how Maguire took this very, lighthearted world of Oz and made it darker and more...
human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But others just weren't ready for that.
Right.
It was super divisive when it first came out.
I have to admit, even when I first heard about Wicked, I just thought, oh, it's going to be like a fun, witchy spin-off.
Right.
But then when I read it, it's just like this whole other dimension of Oz.
Oh, totally.
He really didn't shy away from anything.
Really from the
The
politics.
social issues.
Anything.
And that's what makes it so interesting to unpack.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just a retelling.
It's a total reimagining.
It's like he uses Oz as this mirror to reflect on our own world.
With all of its complexities.
And its ugliness.
Yeah.
He's saying, hey, things aren't always just black and white, good versus evil.
Yeah, and that's especially clear when you look at how he portrays Elphaba.
The Wicked Witch herself.
Right. One critic even called her a villain you can't help but root for. And I think that perfectly sums up the magic of Wicked.
That's true.
Maguire humanizes Elphaba. He shows us her childhood, her struggles, her passions, and suddenly she's not this one-dimensional villain anymore.
No, she's a person.
Exactly.
There's this one scene I'm thinking of. She's at university, and she's facing all this discrimination.
Oh, yeah.
Because of her green skin.
It's heartbreaking.
It just breaks your heart, and you realize she's a product of her environment.
And that's where Maguire really starts to break down that whole good versus evil binary.
Yeah.
He's like, look, even the so-called Wicked Witch has a backstory,
Right.
A reason for her actions.
It's mind-blowing because it forces you to re-examine everything you thought you knew.
About the Wizard of Oz.
About villains, heroes.
Praise yourself,
It
even.
really makes you think.
It's a testament to Maguire's skill as a writer because he weaves this intricate web of social commentary and political allegory and these compelling characters all within this fantasy world.
It's no wonder it resonated with so many people.
Speaking of resonating with people, we have to talk about how Wicked went from this kind of divisive book to a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks in large part to the Broadway musical.
The musical.
It's interesting because the musical actually takes a bit of a different approach.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's still based on Maguire's story,
Yeah.
but it shifts the focus a bit.
Okay.
It puts more emphasis on themes of friendship and resilience.
Which, let's be honest,
Yeah.
everyone can relate to.
Everyone, yeah.
It's a good point. It's like the musical tapped into this universal need for connection,
Yeah,
which is probably why it became such a smash hit.
probably.
Like you just belting out these powerful songs about friendship and finding your place in the world.
It just hits you right in the feels.
Yeah.
And even though the musical streamlines some of the more complex themes from the book,
Right.
it still manages to retain that core message of challenging perceptions and looking beyond surface appearances.
That's true. It's like Wicked on stage is just a different facet of the same gem. But before we get too into the Broadway side of things, let's go back to those critics who initially found Wicked a little too dark for their tastes.
Okay.
Why do you think they reacted that way?
That's a great question, and honestly, it's something that scholars are still debating.
Really?
Yeah. Was it the time period? Was it Maguire's writing style? Was it just too much of a departure from the original story?
I think there's a few things at play here.
Yeah.
This is getting good. All right, listeners, grab your thinking caps. Things are about to get really interesting.
So one theory is that some critics just weren't quite ready for Maguire's take on Oz. The book came out in 1995, and fantasy, especially for adults, just wasn't as mainstream back then as it is now.
Yeah, that's true. Like he was really breaking new ground.
Yeah, and not everyone was ready for it.
And he went in such a dark, gritty direction with it, too.
Totally. Back then, fantasy was seen as this kind of like lighthearted escape.
Right.
And Wicked came along tackling these really heavy topics like oppression, abuse of power, even.
It got real, even though it was set in this magical world.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe what made some readers uncomfortable.
Yeah, like he was holding a mirror up to our world.
Right.
And saying, hey, look at all this darkness.
Even in the places you think are purely magical.
Right, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
And some of the criticism actually focused on Maguire's writing style, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he used a lot of rich imagery and complex sentences.
It's not exactly a light read.
It's not a beach read.
Yeah, if you're looking for something easy and breezy.
This is not it.
Yeah, I can see.
But for me, the payoff is worth it.
Yeah.
The language is so beautiful and evocative.
It really pulls you in.
It does, and that's the thing about Wicked.
Yeah.
It rewards close reading.
Oh, interesting.
The more you dig into the language, the symbolism, the character development, the more you discover.
That's like an onion.
It is. You keep peeling back these layers, and each layer just reveals something new.
Okay, so we've got the darkness.
Yeah.
The dense writing style.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this whole departure from the original Wizard of Oz story.
Right, and that was a big deal for some people.
Yeah, like they felt like he was messing with something sacred.
Oh, absolutely. The Wizard of Oz is so iconic.
Yeah, everyone loves it.
It's a classic.
So to see it completely reimagined.
With the Wicked Witch as the main character.
Yeah.
It was bound to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, for sure. It's like he took this story we all know and love and just turned it upside down.
Flipped it.
Shook all the pieces loose.
And put it back together in this new way.
And unexpected.
Totally.
But sometimes that kind of risk-taking is what we need.
Yeah, it forces us to question things.
To look at things from a new perspective.
Exactly. And in the case of Wicked,
yeah,
it allowed us to see the Wicked Witch in a totally new light.
Not as a cackling villain.
But as a real complex person.
Yeah, with flaws.
But ultimately sympathetic.
Okay, so we've talked about why some critics might have been a little hesitant about Wicked.
Yeah.
But let's dive a little deeper into the academic side of things.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that the book is full of, social and political allegory.
Yeah.
What exactly are scholars seeing there?
Well, for starters, let's talk about Elphaba's green skin.
Okay.
It's not just a random character trait. It's like this powerful symbol of otherness.
Mm-hmm.
One scholar even described it as a visual representation of all the ways society marginalizes people who are different.
Wow.
It's deep.
It's like her green skin represents any group that's ever been ostracized or discriminated against.
Yeah, and it's not just about appearance either.
Okay.
Elphaba is super intelligent and outspoken.
She's a strong character.
Yeah, and that actually makes her a threat to the power structures in Oz.
Interesting.
She challenges the status quo.
And people don't always like that.
The people in power definitely don't like it.
So it's not just that she looks different, it's that she thinks differently.
Exactly. It's a powerful combination.
It really is.
And some scholars have even drawn parallels between the wizard's regime in Oz and real-world authoritarianism.
Really?
Yeah, and propaganda.
Wow.
The way the wizard manipulates information and controls the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
it's eerily similar to tactics used by oppressive regimes throughout history.
It's kind of scary.
It is, and I think that's one of the things that makes Wicked so effective.
As a social commentary.
Yeah, it doesn't hit you over the head with its message.
Okay.
It invites you to think critically.
To draw your own conclusions.
Right, and that's what makes it such a rich text for academics to study.
Yeah, there are so many layers to it.
So many layers.
It's like every time you read it, you discover something new.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that sets Wicked apart from other fantasy novels.
How so?
It's not just escapism.
Oh, okay.
It actually engages with real-world issues in a really deep way.
It makes you think.
Yeah, you know what really struck me about Wicked?
Yeah.
It's how Maguire plays with perspective. We're so used to seeing the Wizard of Oz from Dorothy's point of view.
Yeah.
But in Wicked, we see everything from Elphaba's side.
And it completely changes how you see the whole story.
Completely. That's one of the hallmarks of postmodern storytelling.
Postmodern storytelling.
Yeah.
Could you break that down for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term?
Sure. So in traditional storytelling, you usually have a clear hero and a clear villain.
Right.
A straightforward plot, one true version of events. But postmodern storytelling challenges all of that.
Okay.
It embraces ambiguity, plays with different perspectives, and it kind of blurs the lines between good and evil.
So it's like Maguire saying, hey, there's more to the story than what you've been told.
Right, and it makes you question everything.
Yeah, like as a reader, you have to decide what you believe.
Exactly, and that's what makes Wicked so engaging.
You're not just passively reading it.
No, you're having a conversation with the text.
It's a challenge.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this postmodern, multi-layered masterpiece.
Yeah.
That's both a fantastical escape.
And a sharp social commentary.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to explore. We've talked about how Wicked has had this big impact on literature and theater, and even like how we think about stories.
Yeah.
But what about its impact on us? You know, like as readers and as people?
That's a great question.
It really is.
And honestly,
yeah.
we could probably spend hours just talking about that.
Right.
But if I had to sum it up in one key takeaway,
Right.
it would be this. Wicked reminds us that everyone has a story.
Oh, I like that. It's so easy to just get caught up in our own little narratives.
To see ourselves as the heroes of our own lives.
But Wicked challenges us to look beyond that.
To think about things from other people's perspectives.
Even the people we might think of as the villains.
Exactly. And that goes back to that thought-provoking question we left you with.
In the last section.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just label people as good or bad.
Based on, like, our limited understanding.
Right. We don't see the whole picture.
Exactly. But what if we actually took the time to, like, understand their motivations,
their struggles,
their journeys?
It's like that saying, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Exactly. And Wicked takes that to a whole other level.
By letting us walk a mile in the Wicked Witch's shoes.
Exactly.
And once we do that,
yeah,
our ideas about good and evil become a lot more complicated.
Way more nuanced.
We might even start to see ourselves a little differently.
Oh,
and how our own actions affect other people.
It makes you think about all those times you've made snap judgments.
Oh, yeah.
About people.
Without really knowing anything about their situation.
Right. And that's where empathy comes in.
Wicked is like a masterclass in empathy.
It really is. And in a world that's becoming so polarized.
More and more every day.
That message of empathy is more important now than ever.
It really is.
It's like a reminder that there's always more to the story
than what we see on the surface.
Maguire is basically saying, hey, let's ditch those simple labels.
Good and bad. Right.
And just embrace how complex people really are.
Because really, we're all a mix of good and bad.
Light and shadow.
And that's okay.
It is. It's what makes us human.
The more we can acknowledge that complexity in ourselves and in other people, the more compassionate we can become.
I think one of the things that always stays with me after I finish reading Wicked is that sense of hope.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even though Elphaba goes through so much,
make some bad choices,
there's still this feeling that things can change.
That people can grow.
That we can choose to be better.
It's such a powerful message.
It really is, and it resonates with people.
Whether they're reading the book or watching the musical.
Or just talking about Wicked.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there's always potential for growth.
For redemption.
For finding your own way.
And that's what makes Wicked more than just a fantasy story.
It's a reflection of life.
The human experience.
With all its complexities and contradictions.
It's a story that stays with you.
Challenges you.
And ultimately inspires you to be a little bit more...
wicked.
Yeah, in a good way.
Like to question things.
To be yourself.
And to fight for what you believe in.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think we've come full circle.
In our deep dive into Wicked.
We've explored everything.
Its origins, its impact, even the controversies.
And its legacy.
It's been an incredible journey.
It really has.
And a huge thank you to you for being our expert guide today.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine.
It's always so fascinating to hear your insights.
I always learn something new every time I talk about Wicked.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We hope you learned something new.
And that maybe you even have a newfound appreciation for the power of stories.
To challenge us, to inspire us.
And to change us.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations going.
See you next time.